Welcome back, Chippers, to another edition of Chippers TV. What we're going to do today is we're going to take a simple design and we're going to actually build a napkin holder for your dining room table or your kitchen table. The neat thing about this is there are multiple different kinds of designs that you can do, and it's all up to your own imagination to what you can build. So we're going to start out with a simple one. So I came up with some simple plans. Now I just sketched this out on paper, so this is not done with the AutoCAD system. But the sides, the base is going to be 5 inches long. The sides are going to be 5 inches to match the base, and we're going to go up 3 inches, and then we're going to come into the middle and we're going to make it look like a roof on a house. Okay, so we're going to need 2 of those and 1 base. So what we're going to do is I'm actually going to lay this out, and I'm going to show you a couple different ways, and I'm going to show you 2 different designs, and then we're going to build one of them, and then we'll see what happens from there. So the size of this for our template, so we're going to do our template first, is we want a 5 inch by 5 inch square. So I'm going to take my paper and I'll mark out 5 inches and 5 inches. Take our straight edge and come across. And then I'm going to come up 5 inches. And there's our 5 inches, so we're already there. So take that, draw that line. So that's the basic size of our side. So now what we want to do is we want to come up 3 inches on either side before we go in to make our peak in the middle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure again, but I'm going to measure up 3 inches. And I'm just going to put a mark there. And I'm going to do the same on this side. Put a mark there at 3 inches. Okay, so we've got our 3 inches up, 3 inches up. But, I want to bring this one over just a little bit more to the edge. Because then what we're going to do is to get our actual template to make sure that we get the peak right, is if we have 5 inches wide, we need to figure out what half of 5 inches is. So, what's half of 5 inches? Is 2 inches plus 2 inches, that's 4 inches, so we're an inch short. So what if we went 2.5 inches by 2.5 inches? 2.5 plus 2.5 will give us 5. So I'm going to come in 2 inches, 2.5 inches, which is going to give me our center point. Got our marks there. Now remember, we came up 3 inches on the sides, on either side. So now we have our marks right there. So now I'm going to take my straight edge, and I'm going to take that and put that on that mark on the side there, and put it on the mark on the side there. And then I'm going to draw a line, and I'm going to do the same on the other side. Is that. There's your 2.5 by 2.5. This gives us our template. Okay, so then we're going to cut that out. And this is what we're going to use to actually make our project out of wood. So I'm going to cut this out real quick. Okay, and the reason we make our template out of paper is really simple. Okay, so there we go. That gives us our size. So we have that. What if we don't know exactly what half of whatever measurement it is? I'm going to show you a shortcut for that. If you don't know and you don't want to do the math at the time, say you want to be a little bit lazy, you take it and you cut out your 5 by 5 piece, and then you're going to fold it in half. And when you fold it in half, that's going to give you your center line. Can you see where that center line is? So now we know where the center is on that. Okay, so that's the template we're going to use. And so what we're going to end up doing is we're going to use this to build our napkin holder. And the way I came up with that is here's a napkin, a standard napkin. So what I wanted to do is figure out how to hold that. So I measured in, and there's 6 inches right there. by 6 inches. Okay, so it's 6 inches by 6 inches, so I chose 5 because you want part of it to stick out of the top. So whatever design you use on the top, you want a little bit to stick out, because when you have it standing in there, you want to be able to pull it out. What if we want to do another design? Change the sides. Okay, we're going to use the same 5 inches by 5 inches, but now let's say we want to do a rounded top. Piece of paper, and what I've got here is a plastic lid. Okay, so what I did is I've got my 5 inches by 5 inches, and I got my mark down at, coming up from the bottom for 3 inches, and they're top of my 5 inches. So I go like that, and I draw my line around, and now we've got a rounded top that's even on both sides, so that we can use the same design. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and go out, and since I've cut this one out already, we're going to actually use this one to actually build our first project. So come on, let's go out to the... Alright, now that we've gone through the design process and the basic engineering and design of the concept that I'm going to use, I've got my template here that I've pre-cut out to make it look the way I want it, and then I've got my piece of plywood here that I'm going to use, and I'm going to draw this out, and then we're going to cut this out. So what I'm going to do is all I'm going to do is lay this down, get the bottom lined up, and then we're going to go ahead and line that all up, and then I'm going to mark it, and then we're going to mark it all the way around. Do is I'm going to take my combination square and straighten these lines out to make sure I have straight lines. So I'm going to get my combination square, going to line that up, mark it, line that up, mark it, and just so I'm pretty straight here, I'm going to go ahead and line that up and mark that side. So we'll get that marked at the top. So I'll know where to cut it. So we've got that there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and clamp this down so I can cut this, and I want to make sure I'm over the edge. So I'm going to put my clamps on to hold the board in place. The first thing we're going to do before we use hand tools or power tools, we put on our safety glasses. For this process, I'm going to go ahead and use the jigsaw. So this is the jigsaw, and I'm going to cut this out, and then I'm going to use this piece to be the template for the other side of the napkin holder. So go ahead and cut this. And what I did is I cut up through, because I'm going to go ahead and cut this off to get the right angle. These off because I got it a little too close to the table. So there's our first piece that we've got for the one side. So now I'm going to use that as the template, and we're going to do that same process again. I'm going to mark that down, get all the sides marked, down, check to make sure I'm over the edge, and I am. Okay, so now I've got my two pieces. We're going to sand those down, and I'm going to cut the base, and we'll do that next. Okay, so now we've cut our side pieces. We're going to cut the base. Okay, and this is a scrap piece that I had off of another project, so I'm reusing this wood. And what I decided on, as we talked about in the first segment, was it's going to be 1 7/8 inches thick, and it's going to be 5 inches. So there's our 5 inches right there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this on here, and we're going to line this up. And as you can see, there's a light. I turned on the light. Can you see that? It's going on the line right down there. So take that and tighten this down to hold our board in place. So now we've cut our base, so we have the base. So taking our two pieces, there's our side, so when we glue it together, this is how it's going to come together, like that. But what I've got is I didn't cut them completely, the sides completely straight, so I'm going to have to sand those down a little bit. So what I'm going to have to do is get the sander, and I'm going to sand these down just a tad to get them to line up a little bit more. So we're going to go over to the belt sander and sand these down just a little bit. Okay, so now we're at the belt sander, so I'm going to straighten these edges out a little bit before we do the third part. Okay, so that's got our pieces so they're lined up. So we got those lined up, so we're ready to go back over, and we're going to go ahead and put on the piece on the side here for a decorative piece to make it more of a 3D thing, and then we'll glue it together, and then we'll see the finish sander that I'm going to use. And I'm going to go ahead and get all the marks off of the sides and take a little sanding on the base before we put it together. Okay, now we're ready to put it together. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and put it together. You should go ahead and stain these if you want before you put them on. I'm doing this just to show you how to do it. It's a how-to video. So what I did is cut out some little pieces of fruit that I'm going to put on the sides like that, and then we'll put a dark stain on the background and get those like a paprika or a red. So I'm going to glue those pieces on first. So what I'm going to do is set these pieces out like that, take my glue, and we'll get that glue spread around. We're going to put one on either side. Spread this around. Get this glue all over. We'll get that everywhere. And then we're going to clean our fingers off. And then what I do is I'm just going to eyeball it because I don't like things to be exactly perfect. So I'm going to take that and I'm going to stick that in and get it close to center, like so. And then I'm going to take a clamp and clamp that down. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side and get it close to how I want it. If you need it to be exact, you can measure from edge to edge and get it exact, giving it the little home style feel. So I'm going to clamp that down. Then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to clamp these pieces onto the base. Okay, so now I'm going to put glue on the edges of the base, and then we're going to glue that all together. So we'll spread that around. Make sure we got a good coat everywhere on both sides. And I'm going to take my rag and wipe off the excess on the sides there. And then what I'm going to do is set this on here like that. Okay, so now those are dry, so I'm going to go ahead and take these and put them on the side of our base. And I'll make sure that we got it lined up on the edges here all the way around. And then I'm going to take my clamp and I'm going to clamp these down. And before we finish that up, I've got another piece that's the same size that I'm going to put in the top as a spacer. As you can see, it's tightened that up. That's our spacer. That'll come out. That's just to hold it so we have the same shape. So we'll tighten that all up now. Make sure we're all lined up. Wipe off any of the excess on the bottom and on the insides. And then we're going to let that dry. Okay, so now I've taken the clamps off, and what I've done also is I went ahead and stained this, and what I use is a paprika for the fruit on the sides, so you can see that, and I use a dark stain on the rest. Now, because this is just a how-to video, I would recommend that you glue these side pieces on first before you glue it onto the base. Because in that way you can actually stain the sides and the pieces of fruit before you glue them together. And then when you get done, take your napkins, put them in, go on the dining room table, kitchen table, or the kitchen counter. Okay, so now that we went out and built that, I've come in and now I've got three things I'm going to show you. Okay, the one I showed you out in the shop was finished. This has got no finish on it. There's our sides for that. Okay, and here's the one that's finished. So you can see that you can put different finishes on it and everything else. And it's up to your imagination to what you put on the sides. Again, just like when we talked about with building the coasters and making a set of coasters, you can put pictures and then you can put clear coat on top of them to seal it. You can cut out wood pieces like we've got here that I used. You can use just about anything, but the other thing is it's up to your imagination of how this is designed. So there we've got that one and that one. Now remember, we had our template and I made it a rounded top, remember? Beginning. So now what we've got is there's a different style using different cutout to different pieces. I use stars. So basically I put a dark background on it to make it look like a starry night. And then you can just take and put your napkins inside. And there you go. Remember, think outside the box and always, always dream, think, design, build, and learn.